One lunchtime in August 1956, a 28-year-old General Motors designer named Chuck Jordan did something that would quietly change the course of American automotive history. He drove across town to the back of Chrysler's Hamtramck assembly plant, not because anyone asked him to, but because he was curious. What he saw through that chain-link fence stopped him cold. Brand new 1957 Plymouths, not yet released to the public, were sitting in the lot. Clean, lean, low, with sweeping fins that made everything GM was currently designing look like it belonged to another decade. Jordan later described it in his own words, "All I could see were fins, fins, fins. Wow, that was a real shock. They looked so clean with that thin roof, all just the opposite of what we were working on at GM." He immediately found his boss Bill Mitchell, and together a group of designers went back to look through that fence. That same afternoon, while Harley Earl, GM's all-powerful head of styling, was away in Europe, Mitchell made a decision that took real courage. He ordered the entire 1959 GM design program scrapped and started over. From scratch. Against the clock. In secret. When Earl returned and saw the new proposals, he walked around the studio, said nothing, and walked out. A few days later, Mitchell told the team that Earl had quietly approved the new direction. The car that eventually emerged from that fence-peering and corporate nerve is the 1959 Chevrolet Impala. Nearly 500,000 of them sold in a single year. And this is just the first of 7 genuine, historically verified secrets that most people have never heard about one of the most iconic American automobiles ever built. What makes these secrets worth your time is not only that they are surprising, it is that each one reveals something deeply human about the people who built this car under pressure, and the world they were trying to impress. So let us keep going, because secret number 2 will make you look at those famous batwing fins very differently the next time you see them. When you stand next to a 1959 Impala and admire that sculpted sheet metal, you are looking at a car that shares its basic body structure with certain Bic and Oldsmobile models from the same year. General Motors made a deliberate company-wide decision in 1959 to share body shells across divisions to cut costs and compress the development timeline. The entire GM lineup was being redesigned simultaneously after that panic-driven overhaul, and sharing structural components was the only practical way to make the deadline. Now think about what that means. The most distinctively styled American automobile of the entire 1950s, a car so recognizable that people still pull over to watch it go by 6 decades later, was built on a skeleton it shared with its corporate siblings. And not a single buyer in 1959 knew. Chevrolet's designers took those shared bones and dressed them so boldly, so dramatically, that the Impala looked like nothing else on the road. That is not a limitation story, that is a creativity story. Secret number 3 reaches under the hood and into a debate that has sparked arguments at car shows for decades. The most powerful engine available in the 1959 Impala was the 348 cubic inch big block V8, the turbo thrust, producing up to 315 horsepower. You may have heard people say the 348 was a truck engine. Here is the accurate, documented truth. The 348 was engineered from day one to serve both passenger cars and light trucks simultaneously. Chevrolet created the W-Series engine family specifically because they needed one design that could handle the demands of larger passenger cars and also work in trucks, without requiring 2 separate, expensive development programs. In passenger car form it was called the Turbo Thrust. In truck form it was called the Workmaster. Same fundamental architecture, 2 different applications, designed together from the start. A simple relief groove cut into the cylinder wall on truck versions lowered the compression ratio for commercial use, while car versions used conventional walls with varying piston domes for higher compression. So the next time someone tells you the 348 is a truck engine, you have the complete truth. It was an engine designed for both worlds at once, and that was not an accident, that was the plan. Secret number 4 is where this story turns dark, and it changes how you think about those beautiful low lines forever. The 1959 Impala rode on GM's X-frame chassis. Instead of conventional side rails running the full length of the car alongside the passenger area, the X-frame pinched inward in the middle, leaving no side structural protection along the passenger compartment at all. GM adopted this specifically to lower the body height, because in 1959 every buyer wanted their car to sit as close to the ground as possible. But in the fall of 1959, a photograph began circulating in newspapers across the United States that shook the automotive world. It showed a Chevrolet that had struck a tree broadside and had broken completely in half at the point where the X-frame intersected. The frame had literally severed at the junction of the X. GM investigators attributed the failure to the semi-airborne position of the car at impact, which allowed the engine mass to act like a sledgehammer against the weakest structural point. GM publicly defended the X-frame. But by 1965, just 6 years after that photograph appeared in papers across the country, every single General Motors model except the Bic Riviera had quietly abandoned the X-frame and returned to a conventional perimeter design with full side rails. The most admired car of 1959 was rolling on a chassis its own manufacturer would stop using within a few years. That tension between beauty and consequence is one of the most honest stories in Detroit history. Secret number 5 will astonish most viewers, because it involves a country, a corporate strategy, and a car that was secretly not what it claimed to be. In 1959, Canadian consumers could walk into a Pontiac dealership and drive home in what looked entirely like a Pontiac. The badges said Pontiac. The grills said Pontiac. But underneath, the car was riding on a Chevrolet Impala chassis with Chevrolet engines, because General Motors of Canada had been building Pontiac models on Chevrolet underpinnings to avoid the tariffs imposed by the Canadian government on imported vehicles. The Pontiac Parisian sat at the top of this range, equivalent in positioning to the Impala, while the Laurentian and Strato Chief filled the tiers below. Enthusiasts today call these cars Cheviacs, and the name fits perfectly. This arrangement worked so well that by 1962, Pontiac had become the #1 selling automotive brand in all of Canada, built almost entirely on the bones of the Chevrolet Impala. Canada's best-selling car was secretly a Chevy wearing a Pontiac badge. Secret number 6 carries a sharp irony, because it is about how the car's most visually stunning feature nearly became its commercial undoing. The 1959 Impala Sport Coupe featured a dramatically low hardtop roofline with a wide, sweeping expanse of glass that made the two-door model look almost futuristic from the outside. People genuinely stopped in the street to stare. But the moment summer arrived, owners discovered the problem. That beautiful canopy of glass turned the Sport Coupe's interior into a literal greenhouse on a hot day, baking passengers even before the engine was started. This heat retention issue was well documented among owners. Full-size Ford coupes outsold Chevrolet's coupes in both 1960 and 1961, and the heat problem with Chevy's dramatic Sport Coupe roofline was cited as a contributing factor. The very design choice that made the 1959 Impala Sport Coupe look extraordinary was simultaneously driving away buyers in warmer climates. Beauty had a price, and in this case, it was measured in degrees. Secret number 7 is the most unexpected of all, because it is the story of a second life that nobody designing this car could have imagined in 1959. When the Impala hit showrooms, it was marketed as an aspirational family car, spacious, stylish, more affordable than a Cadillac. Nobody in the GM boardroom was thinking about what this car would come to mean to communities outside their target demographic. And yet, across Latino communities in Los Angeles and the American Southwest, the Impala, spanning the late 1950s and early 1960s generation, became the central vehicle of the lowrider movement, a cultural tradition built on extraordinary craftsmanship, artistic expression, and genuine community pride. Hydraulic systems were installed so the cars could rise, dip, and dance. Interiors were hand-stitched with meticulous care. Paint was layered until it glowed like jewelry under the California sun. These were not modified cars. They were rolling works of art. And the Impala was chosen again and again because its proportions and its long, low presence made it the most expressive canvas available. In hip-hop and rhythm and blues, the Impala was referenced decade after decade as a symbol of authenticity and arrival that could not be manufactured, only earned. None of that appeared in any 1959 Chevrolet brochure. It grew from the truth that this car, even at its original price of less than $3,000, made ordinary people feel extraordinary. 7 secrets. Every one of them real. Every one verified. The 1959 Chevrolet Impala was born from competitive panic, built on shared bones, powered by a dual-purpose engine, controversial beneath its skin, secretly powering cars on another continent, hot enough inside to lose Chevy sales, and beloved enough to become a cultural icon that no executive planned and no marketing team predicted. That is not the story of a car. That is the story of something that became alive. Did you ever own a 1959 Impala, ride in one, or stand beside one at a show and feel something you could not quite put into words? Drop that memory in the comments, because some stories deserve to keep moving, and the story of the 1959 Impala is absolutely one of them.